Hello, chess enthusiasts. Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into a fascinating game from the 1927 World Championship match between two of the greatest chess players in history, Alekhine and José Raúl Capablanca. In this game, we'll witness the brilliance of Alekhine's aggressive play against the solid and strategic style of Capablanca. As we explore the opening phase, keep an eye on how both players establish their positions and prepare for a battle of wits. Let's jump right into the action and analyze the opening moves that set the stage for this incredible encounter. Alekhine vs. Capablanca, World Championship 1927. 1. Pawn to d4. Alekhine opens with the queen's pawn opening, aiming for control of the center. Knight to f6. Capablanca responds with the knight, preparing to contest the center and allowing for e6 later. 2. Pawn to c4. A natural follow-up for Alekhine, reinforcing his center and preparing to challenge black's pawn on d5. Pawn to e6. Capablanca solidifies his position and prepares to develop his pieces. 3. Knight to c3. Alekhine develops his knight, reinforcing control over the central e4 square. Pawn to d5. Capablanca strikes in the center, challenging Alekhine's pawn structure. 4. Bishop to g5. Alekhine pins the knight on f6, putting pressure on black's position. Knight to d7. Capablanca breaks the pin, preparing to develop his other pieces. 5. Pawn to e3. Alekhine solidifies his center, planning to develop his dark-squared bishop. Bishop to e7. Capablanca prepares to castle while easing the pressure on his knight. 6. Knight to f3. Alekhine develops his knight, connecting his pieces and eyeing the important central squares. King to g8. Capablanca castles, ensuring his king's safety and connecting his rooks. 7. Rook to c1. Alekhine plays the rook to c1, increasing control over the c-file and supporting the c4 pawn. Pawn to c6. Capablanca supports his d5 pawn and prepares to develop the knight on b8. 8. Queen to c2. Alekhine moves his queen, eyeing the h7 pawn and increasing pressure on the c-pawn. Pawn to a6. Capablanca prepares future b5 expansion and prevents any threats from b5. 9. Pawn to a3. Alekhine prevents b5 and reinforces his grip on the queen side. Pawn to h6. Capablanca challenges Alekhine's bishop, seeking to relieve the pressure on his knight. 10. Bishop to h4. Alekhine retreats his bishop, keeping the pin on the knight on f6 alive. Rook to e8. Capablanca centralizes his rook, preparing for potential e5 pawn breaks. 11. Rook to d1. Alekhine places his rook on the open d-file, increasing his control of the center. Pawn to b5. Capablanca attempts to expand on the queen side and activate his pieces. 12. Pawn takes pawn on b5. Alekhine captures the pawn, opening up the position for his pieces. Pawn takes pawn on b5. Capablanca recaptures, keeping the pawn structure intact. 13. Bishop to d3. Alekhine moves his bishop to a more active square, aiming at the king side. Bishop to b7. Capablanca develops his bishop, putting pressure on the e4 square. 14. King to g1. Alekhine completes his kingside development and ensures his king's safety. Rook to c8. Capablanca aims to bring more power to the c-file and target Alekhine's pawns. 15. Queen to b1. Alekhine threatens the b5 pawn while aligning his queen with the king on the diagonal. Queen to a5. Capablanca moves his queen to attack the knight on c3 while defending the b5 pawn. 16. Knight to e2. Alekhine moves the knight to reinforce the position and prepare for future actions. Knight to b6. Capablanca reroutes his knight, preparing to bring it into the game actively. 17. Knight to e5. Alekhine centralizes his knight, exerting pressure. Knight to c4. Capablanca challenges Alekhine's knight on e5 and gains a tempo with an active piece. 18. Bishop takes knight on f6. Alekhine decides to exchange, removing a defender and altering pawn structure. Bishop takes bishop on f6. Capablanca recaptures, keeping pressure on the center. 19. Bishop to h7. Alekhine checks, forcing the king to move while initiating an offensive. King to f8. Capablanca steps away from the check, though his king's position becomes precarious. 20. Knight to d7. Alekhine delivers a check with the knight, forcing further king movement. King to e7. Capablanca's king is now open and exposed. 21. Knight to c5. Alekhine brings another piece into the attack, threatening the queen and improving his position. Queen to b6. Capablanca moves the queen to an active square, threatening the knight. 22. Knight takes bishop on b7. Alekhine captures, grabbing material and continuing to press. Queen takes knight on b7. Capablanca recaptures, but his position remains vulnerable. 23. Bishop to d3. Alekhine keeps the attack going, positioning his pieces for maximum pressure. Rook to c7. Capablanca tries to coordinate his rooks for defense. 24. Queen to a2. Alekhine aims for the weakened pawns on the queen side and prepares to infiltrate. Rook to c8. Capablanca mobilizes his rook to counterbalance pressure on the c-file. 25. Pawn to b3. Alekhine solidifies his pawn structure, intending to support further attacks. Knight to d6. Capablanca brings a piece back into play, aiming to stabilize the situation. 26. Queen to d2. Alekhine centralizes his queen for more influence over the board. Queen to b6. Capablanca repositions, maintaining his focus on the knight. 27. Rook to c1. Alekhine doubles down on the c-file, aiming for an upcoming attack. King to d7. Capablanca's king moves into the center, becoming more vulnerable. 28. Rook takes rook on c7. Alekhine captures the rook, gaining material and increasing his attack momentum. Rook takes rook on c7. Capablanca recaptures, but his position remains under severe pressure. 29. Bishop to b1. Alekhine reinforces the c5 square while preparing for a future attack. Bishop to e7. Capablanca tries to consolidate his position and defend against threats. 30. Knight to f4. Alekhine brings his knight closer to the action, aiming to exploit weaknesses. King to c8. Capablanca's king crawls out of the center, which is becoming increasingly dangerous. 31. Queen to e2. Alekhine prepares for a final assault, aligning his pieces for maximum effectiveness. Pawn to g6. Capablanca attempts to create breathing room for his king. 32. Knight to d3. Alekhine repositions the knight, increasing pressure on black's position. Knight to e4. Capablanca's knight is active but also risks being overextended. 33. Pawn to b4. Alekhine pushes the pawn, aiming to keep black's pieces tied down. Rook to c3. Capablanca counterattacks with the rook, but it's not enough. 34. Queen to b2. Alekhine targets the b4 pawn and shifts the initiative back to himself. Queen to c7. Capablanca's queen tries to connect with his pieces for a defensive setup. 35. Knight to c5. Alekhine reinforces his pressure, threatening to destabilize black further. Bishop takes knight on c5. Capablanca exchanges pieces to relieve some pressure. 36. Pawn takes bishop on c5. Alekhine recaptures with a pawn, maintaining a strong position. Queen to e5. Capablanca actively seeks counterplay, hoping to reduce Alekhine's advantage. 37. Pawn to f4. Alekhine bolsters his position and makes the king's side pawns more dynamic. Queen to g7. Capablanca's queen aims to defend but risks being outmaneuvered. 38. Bishop takes knight on e4. Alekhine captures, gaining material and further optimizing his position. Pawn takes bishop on e4. Capablanca recaptures, but his position is precarious. 39. King to f2. Alekhine brings the king to support his advanced pawns. Queen to f6. Capablanca attempts to regroup and find ways to defend. 40. Pawn to g3. Alekhine prepares to push his pawns while maintaining an attack strategy. Pawn to g5. Capablanca is forced to respond with pawns, but his position looks increasingly dire. 41. Rook to c1. Alekhine consolidates his advantage, threatening to break through and claiming victory. In this brilliant demonstration of strategy and tactics, Alekhine outplayed Capablanca, leading to a decisive victory. The game's complex play illustrates the nuances of chess at the highest level. Thank you for joining us as we explored this remarkable game between Alekhine and Capablanca from the 1927 World Championship. We witnessed not only the tactical brilliance of Alekhine but also the resilience and strategic depth that Capablanca brought to the board. This game was a true testament to the beauty of chess, showcasing how each move can dramatically alter the landscape of the game. Alekhine's aggressive play and sharp tactics ultimately led him to victory, but the rich complexities of Capablanca's position remind us that every great player leaves their mark on the board. If you enjoyed this analysis, please give us a like and subscribe for more chess content, game analyses, and strategies. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this match. What were your favorite moments? Were there any moves that surprised you? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, keep enjoying the game of chess, and remember, it's not just about winning but also about learning and growing as a player. Stay curious, and happy chess playing!